Hello and welcome to In Stitches. Today I'm going to show you how to thread a Bernette 334D. I'll have some close-ups of the details of this. So first of all, I'll just start by removing the thread that's on there just to de-thread this machine. I'm just going to take the white off and I'll be using the colour coding red, blue, green and yellow. I've got appropriate thread colours for that. So let's just start here. The first thing to do when you're threading an overlocker or a serger is to make sure that your thread stand here, the thread mast, is correctly orientated and that it's in the raised position. So first of all, you want to make sure that the actual loops here, so we've got the yellow, that's the left needle, green, the right needle, blue is the upper looper, and red, lower looper. You want to make sure that those loops there are directly above each of its respective spool pins. Okay, so you want it to be sort of directly above like that, you know, not skewed off like that at all. And quite often I do see thread stands that are completely reversed like that there, which is no good because the loops are no longer directly under the spool pin. You can see there's quite an angle on that one. This particular model, quite often you'll see a sticker set this side to front, little sticker on the front there. Make sure that the mast is fully extended. Okay, bring it right up. Make sure again that it's orientated correctly. Some machines will have, this particular model has a little locator in the two sections of the mast here so that it actually clicks into position there like that. Okay, if you click yours into position and it's skewed like that, just take it out of its position. It just means that the lower section of the mast here is not positioned correctly and that needs adjusting. Okay. Pays also when you're threading your machine to turn your machine off and maybe even unplug it from the wall just in case you're not sure, or unplug it from the side of the machine here is probably the safest. Just unplug that there. You don't want to be threading your machine and accidentally hit the foot controller and have it go awry. So for this particular machine, to access behind the front cover here, you just get your thumb on the little this little bit here on the front cover, push it to the right and swing it out towards you. And you can also move the left base cover here out just by pushing it out to the left hand side there. That gives you access to pretty much all that you need here. I'll just quickly de-thread the machine and we'll get started like that. So let's start by positioning the spools here. Now for cones and things like that, you know, you can use these spool holders here. If that fits nicely in there, that's good. You can turn these upside down if you've got larger type cones like that. Not appropriate for these cones, but if you do have slightly larger cones, you can turn those up. And that's good for this sort of thing. If you've got these sorts of spools here, these here, you would take that off and just sit the spool on there. That should be fine. And I think with the accessories on this model, there's a spool cap that you could potentially put on here as well. So yeah, that's one thing to consider. So I'll take those off there. But the main crux of this is the actual threading of the machine. And if I just put the colours on their appropriate spool holders there. And first thing to do is to bring your threads up. Bring your thread up and come over the top of the loop, the appropriate loop, the one that's right above the spool pin there. Okay, So this is the left looper I'm doing just here. Sorry, the focus might go out a little bit here. Upper looper. So you can bring all 4 of your threads over, just like that. And then we've got the right needle just there, left needle just here. And you know, if you're threading 3 thread, well, yeah, you just need the 3 threads, but we're doing 4 thread today, so the same sort of thing applies for 3 thread as well. Now, to start with, we'll start by threading the upper looper, and that is this blue thread here. Okay, and you can see that in this particular machine we've got color coding: blue, blue, blue. These are actually a little bit faded. That's green, green. That is yellow, so the yellow is completely faded off this here. Yellow and yellow and yellow there. Green, green, red, red, red. Looks more like pink there. And then if we open the front door, you can see it's got a handy threading diagram in the front there, where it shows you the thread path and it shows you the sequence of threading there. So 1, we start with the upper looper, 2, lower looper, 3, right needle, 4, left needle. If you're threading for 3 thread, you can thread your left needle, which is represented here by the yellow, to give you a 6mm wide seam, or if you're threading the right needle, that will give you a 4mm wide seam that's represented in green here. If you're threading for 4 thread, you use both your needles, yellow and green. It shows you also the oil points here, a little close-up of the needle bar area, which I'll show you in more detail. And yeah, nice colour coding there. You'll also notice that we've got colour coding on these little tabs here to help you out when you're threading the machine. Now this part's quite important. This is looking just above the tensioners here. You've got this bar here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 guides here. Now you start by bringing your thread in. I've got the loose end of the thread in my right hand here. I'm holding the other end with my left hand, and you just pull it in through the slot here, but you want it to come right over to that left hand side there. And then with your right hand you just bring it up and over, and you can just hold that there like that and bring it down in the other slot. I find it easier just to grab the thread with my left hand there and just bring it down into the right slot with my right hand while I'm holding it with my left. And you should end up in the situation like this here, where you've got the thread coming down through the left hole, out through the bottom, up and over and down through the right hand hole there. And that goes for all of the threads. So you can actually do that right now if you wanted to. Of course, you don't have to thread in, you know, these colours. You just choose whatever you want to sew with. But just pull that through like that. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward. Bit of an old thread there. That, whoops, yeah, be careful of that. Sometimes you can end up going too far, and you know, the thread ends up going back into the left hand slot as well, but you can bring it back, I think. Yeah, just bring it back over so that it's down through the left and then down through the right there. So there we have all of our threads ready to thread through the rest of the system there, but we're starting with the blue, so we'll put these ones out of the way just in the meantime, make sure they don't get tangled up. Now this is a really important step, and this, if you get this wrong, it causes all sorts of issues. I get a lot of machines in for service and people complaining about tension issues, and there's lots of different things it can be, but quite often if it's tension issues, it's incorrect threading, and especially in the tension area here. Just make sure when you're threading these that you pull the thread down into the tensioner here. So I'm holding with my left, I'm stopping the thread here with my left hand, and I'm using my right hand to thread around the tensioner and up to the first guide. Just get you a different angle on that. So effectively I've stopped the thread from coming through by holding on my left hand here, and I've gone around and in, and I've pulled, and you pull these. You don't need to pull too tightly, but you just need to pull it enough for the thread to come into the more central area there. You'll see it. If I just take that out, what can happen is if you don't pull the thread, you'll see that the thread is actually running around the outside of the tension disc. It's pretty hard to see there on the camera, but you've got a couple of tension discs in here that are pressing together, and what's happening is the thread's not actually going in between them, it's just sitting around the outside of them, and there's no tension there. But if you watch closely, when I hold back on the thread, I'll see if I can get you in closer. I've just got you in a little bit closer there to try and make this a little bit clearer, and I'm sorry for labouring the point, but this is important. I'm holding back on this section of the thread here, and I'm pulling. You'll see the thread will pop into the tensioner like that, and you'll see that it's in the right place because it's coming more or less straight down here and not out to the side. And if you pull it, you get a little bit of an idea. If your tension's on 5, which is roughly about where it should be, there's a very slight amount of resistance there on the thread, and you will get a slight amount on the 2 loopers. You'll get more on the 2 needles, so just be aware of that. But you can feel that there's a little bit of something there. It's not completely loose, so just check that as you're going. So I've come around there and through this loop here. Next blue one is down here. Just pull the thread in from right to left there. See if you have a close look here, we're at this point here. Okay, so we're coming down to here, and that is this area here. Okay, so we've got the blue thread coming down, and these thread guides here are a very good design. They allow you to get the thread. Now I've got a very good pair of tweezers here. That's another really important point. Your overlocker or serger should come with a pair of tweezers, but if you're missing the tweezers that come with the machine, get yourself a good pair of tweezers. These are TWE6. These are my favourite tweezers. They are brilliant. Good pair of tweezers is essential. For this particular loop, I grab the left hand side of the thread with the tweezers, and I hold with my right thumb and finger, just pull it from front to back. It should just pop into the thread guide like that. And that's pretty much how all of these thread guides work. Some of them you thread front to back like that, or from bottom to top. You can see here, if I just hook under the next blue loop there, just pull it up, and just the tension of the thread will pull it into there. And then if we have another look on our threading diagram, so we've just gone through that loop, and we're coming up to the other loop here. That's on the top of the upper looper drive there. It's another thread guide here, and then we go through the needle, through the looper eye, sorry. So if we come over here, we can see the upper looper. If you turn your machine in operating direction, you can see the upper looper moving up and down there, and that's the part we want to thread. It doesn't really matter where you have this, but you really want it somewhere where it's convenient for you to thread through these loops. So I find that just with the upper looper down like that, it's pretty good. We just hook it in from back to front around that loop there. And then I do my old trick where I just get the thread and I just pull a loop into it like that and twist like that, and it gives you a nice sturdy doubled up piece of thread that you don't have to trim, to get through the looper eye. It works for the looper eyes, but not the needles. You can't thread the needles like this. But that does help with just a little bit of stability there. I'm threading around the camera here, so it's a little bit awkward. Just get your thread through like that, and then you can pick that little tail up from behind, and I find, I'll try and get you a proper angle here. I'll swing the blade out of the way just so that you can see a little bit easier here. Get that blade out of the way if possible. If I turn the machine in operating direction, hopefully that thread doesn't fall out. You can see it there. You can actually swing the foot out on this machine to the side. I don't think that's really necessary at this point. I think it depends. I mean, you might find it easier, but I find that it's actually easier to come in from around the back with your tweezers and just pick up that loop there like that and come in under the foot like that there. And the reason I'm coming in under the foot there and I'm just sort of trailing out to the rear left of the machine is it makes it a lot easier to start your seam, you know, just to get your chaining going and things like that. So just leave that like that, and then we're ready to start our red lower looper thread. This is probably considered the hardest thread to thread. Again, make sure that you're pulling your thread into your tension discs properly. Come right in over this little loop here, like so. It just sits in there. If we refer to the threading diagram here, we're at this point here, and then we're coming down to another guide here. That's this one, just in from right to left there. And then we've got pretty much the same deal with our loops here, except you'll notice that we've got little red tabs here. So the blue tabs we've done, that's the blue upper looper, and then we've got red lower looper, and red lower looper goes through the same one as the blue. You can see there's a red and a blue side by side there. We've got a separate blue here for that one and a separate red there. So come in under the loop there for that lower looper, make sure it pulls in, and also do the same for this one here. Pull the thread under like so. Now we're ready to thread through this one here, which is again reasonably easy. You should be able to just get your tweezers on the left of it, pull it up. You might need to just give that a wee flick up with your finger just to get it into the loop there. And this particular machine, it's actually not hard to do this if you know the tips and tricks. Now, there is a little threader that comes with the machine, a little loop threader. I don't think it's all that necessary to use. I think it's just a little bit fiddly. I prefer to do it manually with the tweezers, and quite often they're missing, as you can see with this machine. That one is, and I think this one here is a needle threader. But if you don't have this, this is the way to do it. I find it easier to do it this way. I'll just swing you around here so you can see what's going on in a second. But what I do is I get my thread here, and I just poke that thread through to the other side, okay? And I'm picking that up here, right? But I'm not pulling it all the way through. I'm not pulling it all the way through. And you've got to make sure that it doesn't get tangled. So I've still got the other thread here, you know, the loose end, that's the loose end there on this side, on the right side, and on the left side I've got the thread coming out in a big loop here on the left side. And the reason I do that is because when you turn the machine, in operating direction, you'll see the lower looper coming back here. I'll get you in close for this. Okay, we're looking in from the left side here. I've just got you in reasonably close because this is quite important. But once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. Trust me. That's the throat plate there, needle plate. But we've got this loop here coming through, and you can see that's the thread guide that we just threaded through right down in there. It's looking through to the other side of the machine. This is the loose end of the thread here. I'll just try and get that in focus there. You want to bring the thread that's coming from the little loop right at the end of my thumb, right down there. You can't see it, slightly out of focus there, that one. And you want to come in behind the looper and through that little slot in the looper there, like that. Just like that, okay? So that when you pull the loose end from the other end, which I'm going to do here, I've got the loose end here, you watch, it just comes through, and that is the left hand eyelet of the looper threaded. That's often the hardest one to get. Okay, so that's done there now. And if we turn the machine around, just turn the machine around here. I'll turn the machine over to bring the looper through, and you can see this is the loose end here, but we know that it's hooked through that little slot in the left hand side of the looper, because that's what we just did. And I just do my old trick here where I twist the thread over and thread it through the looper eye. You might want to move the looper eye there just so that it's nice and easy. And I push that through a little bit, you see, and that way I can grab it from behind here. I'm just coming in with my tweezers from the rear of the machine, pulling it from the rear, and I'm going again under that plate and coming out to the rear, left rear there. But I have got a little tangle here. You just want to make sure that you have everything right, because you can see the thread looped over while I was doing that. If you're not having to do this while filming from behind a camera, you're probably less likely to get into a situation like this. But if you have trouble getting untangled from that situation, you can just thread this loop here, but I know that just flicking it over like that is going to bring it right. So there you can see that the thread is coming from that little slot in the back of the looper down this channel and front to back through the looper eye and then under the presser foot there, all ready to go. When you're doing this, when you've finished threading your looper, double check that everything's going through the correct path here. So you should have direct point to point threading there. If I turn the machine around, I'll turn it over, bring that left looper back there, you can see that the thread, just double check it, the thread is coming from this eyelet down here, straight up and around the back and through the little slot there. Double check your threading. You can end up in situations where you've accidentally, hooked the thread around, I don't know, like that, for instance, where, the thread's hooked around here. That can happen quite easily when you're in the process of threading, just with slack in the system and things like that. Just make sure that everything's unhooked there, pull the thread, pull it through, and you'll see, and you can double check that everything's in order there. And now we're ready to thread the needles. We can close that left hand cover, close the front cover. Sometimes you do have to just pull it out to the right as you're putting it in towards the machine and just let it go once it's right up against the machine there. Now the needles are a little bit easier to thread. The red lower looper is always the hard one. Okay, so now we're doing green. We come down to the green one here, pull in like before, pull it right in. These can quite often be a lot tighter. And then what you want to do is you want to come in underneath this. I'll get you in closer. Now you want to come in under this here, under this, that there, like that. And then over this one from right to left, like that. Okay, and then you want to come in to this right hand of these two guides here. That's your right hand needle, and while you're at it you can actually do your left needle here as well. Oh, that thread's just popped over there again. I'll just redo that one because it had popped into the left hand channel. There we go, like that. We thread around the disc, pull it in tight like that, and then come in underneath this one again, follow the green. Except now we go through the left hand guide here. Once you've done these two here, I mean, you don't have to do both at the same time. You could do one at a time, or if you're threading a 3-thread, obviously you just do one. But I like to do the needles sort of almost in parallel, really, the sections of it anyway. So come down with your right needle, thread in behind this eyelet here, that one, and then these little eyelets here, they look complicated, but once you know how. The trick to these is just to bring the thread from the right there and sort of towards you, and then come up and around and over the end of that, like that. And same with the left thread there, just come in behind that guide there, and then on the right side there, just like that there. Nice and easy. And then you're ready to thread your needles. And if I just pull a little bit of tension onto the looper threads there, it'll get those out of the way, the red and the blue. And then we can just thread the needles from front to back there. I've just trimmed the thread there so that we can thread front to back, and literally just through the needle eyes like that. Pull it out the back. I bring it down there so that I can do my old trick here, come in from the back and under the presser foot there again. And that will line up with the other two threads, the looper threads there. We do the same thing with the left needle. Just thread it through like that. Pull it out the back and down to the right there. Come in from behind, grab the thread and put it under the plate, under the presser foot. And there you'll see we've got all four threads there ready to sew, basically. And we are literally ready to go. If I plug the machine back in, I did swing the blade out of the way, so let's re-engage that. You'll see here that starting the chaining process is very easy if you've got your threads in this position here. Press a foot down, probably best for chaining, and just quietly and there we have chaining nicely there, and then it's just a matter of starting your seam. Just like that. The tensions are looking okay. I did swap the threads over to different types of thread after having set the tensions, but that looks okay. Yeah, so that's it pretty much. That's the threading process for a Bernette 334D. I hope you found that helpful. And as always, thank you very much to my patrons on Patreon. And thank you very much for watching.